Hi everyone, I'm Mark Collins and I'm an independent food business hospitality coach. I have been for a number of years, and the purpose of these interviews is to be real and try and be inspirational. We're lucky to have these podcasts, or this little series of podcasts, sponsored by Burns and Ferrell. Today my guest is Darren Wright. So Darren, would you like to give us a short introduction about you and your business and the status of Chillingworth Road?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks, Mark, for inviting me on. As you said, I'm Darren Wright. I'm a chef restaurant owner. My wife and I have been operating Chillingworth Road for coming up 8 years now, based in Christchurch. And we had a restaurant in Ackrow. It was the early days of my owner-operator situation. So we operated out in Ackrow for about 10 years at a restaurant called Harbour 71.
Oh, yeah.
And we moved to the city with young children for schooling and things like that, and opened Chillingworth Road back in 2012. So yeah, that's sort of, I guess, the basis of our owner-operator situation. I've done most of my career in Canterbury here. I was born in Akaroa over on the Banks Peninsula. I went to school there and went through CPIT here in Christchurch as a youngster, and worked at a few places in the city, and ended up at the Park Royal in Christchurch back in 1998, and probably did my formal training as such there. Yeah, so that's sort of a brief outline, I guess.
Tell us about what Chillingworth Road, how it operates, operating hours, and who its target clientele is. It might help people understand what you're facing, or what your current situation is.
Yeah, so Chillingworth Road we're actually 6 days a week, but we open 5 evenings and 5 days. So we open Monday to Friday for a little cafe, coffee shop, and we've been catering mainly for actually Spark. That we had there's 7 restaurants in the area that we're in, and we've had Spark occupying the upper floor of the building that we're in. So there was 350 staff in there, and we basically, we targeted them during the day for coffee and scones and pretty sort of humble offerings there, I guess. But I guess the core of our business is the dining room. So we have a 40-seat formal dining space down the back, and that's, I guess, for us, it's the jewel of our crown, I guess.
Yes.
And it's been really well received in the marketplace. It's something that we're really proud of, and I guess our main clientele, to be fair, is probably pretty much a domestic clientele. Like a lot of locals, we have a really good following from our Canterbury community and New Zealand. We don't. One of the positives, I guess, what we're facing at the moment is we don't rely heavily on tourism, and I guess that's a market that's going to be limited for a period. So it's one thing that we're sort of
feel lucky about.
We feel that way.
Well, I think that's the first thing that probably we need to make a point of. Really good to be grateful for a good situation, even though it might be overall bad. Be grateful for what is good, because there's always some poor bugger worse. And I think that's a classic point there, Darren, is that some of our friends that are solely reliant on tourism are really feeling the pain.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think one of the things that has come of our current situation is, we've had time, obviously, to sit and reflect and look at our businesses and what sort of the positives are, and everyone has some negatives as well. But I guess the real focus for us moving forward is to look at the positive things and work to those. So you've got to really embrace those things and use them to your advantage if possible. I mean, there's still a lot of unknowns, and we do know that, but at this stage we're really going to work on those things that we know have worked well for us.
Well, I think that's right. I think everyone out there, and if you watch too much of the news, you get too much of an overdose of what's wrong around the world. And I think the purpose of these is to not get caught up in the negatives. The negatives aren't going to solve the problem, and recognise what we can do, and hopefully I'm going to be able to hear what you've been doing and what you plan to do to really get through this and come out the other side. And hopefully that helps other people think the same way. So the idea of these podcasts is to help as many people as possible and for them to be inspiring, and maybe with some tips or prompts that we pick up as a consequence of what you've got planned or what you've been thinking about. Which I guess leads me to, what do you think your three most, I've picked three, but most significant things that you've been working on over this first part of the level 4, and maybe what plans you have to get back on track? I assume that you've been closed for level 4.
Yes, we have, and level 3 also.
Okay.
We felt that whilst we wanted to go and open the doors or do something in level 3, we felt that to offer what we do in terms of Chillingworth Road dining, we weren't able to pack that up into a box as such and send it out the door, because it's not just about a food proposition, it's about an experience, and that's what we pride ourselves with. So we made the decision to stay closed during lockdown 3. And I guess if we talk about the things that we've thought about a lot, I guess, and are putting into place around moving forward, having time to think about things. I mean, one of the things that we feel is really important is, having a really good connection to suppliers and having good communication with suppliers, particularly around, obviously the products themselves, but around the thought process around, things like pricing and stuff like that. I mean, there's a few things that you can't control with hospitality. Is like you don't directly control who comes through the doors. You can advertise, you can do stuff, social media and get yourself out there. But at the end of the day, it still takes someone to pick up the phone and make a reservation. And the only thing you can control is what happens after that point. So the key things for us really is, the things you can control is costs. So that's something that we've really looked at. And going back to what I said earlier was, working with good suppliers, people that you have relationships with, is important to us, people that you can communicate with. And, there's, if you take, say, the red meat sector at the moment, obviously there's a lot of export stuff that hasn't happened due to different markets being closed. And potentially that's a wonderful thing for us, because we're getting really good quality produce, which we have more available to us, and possibly at better price points based on supply and demand.
Well, they're saying that that's going to change as well. That's quite frightening, isn't it? I mean, that's a positive at the moment, but they're saying that there's a world shortage and there's a massive upswing in their overseas uptake. So, look, it's good that as long as it lasts, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, that's why I say you need to have those conversations with suppliers and get to know your suppliers well on it, and be able to talk to them about those things, and then you can control the costs later on. So, we've been sitting in the formal dining market, and there's an expectation around that, particularly with produce. So we source what we think is the best products for the job, and right across from, we've had at different times, and small producers growing produce for us at times that we get phone calls on a Saturday, what's available for the following week, and we design menus around those things. And then you have all the things that are available all the time, obviously red meat and seafood and stuff like that. But having those communication lines open with suppliers is quite important, because then you can plan a lot more, and like I say, it all reverts back to trying to control your costs. So,
well, I guess they also are reliant on people to buy their product and put it on the menu. So it's a win-win situation, and they must have been hurting too through this shutdown period, especially those that are solely reliant on the hospitality operators. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, we've had, obviously the restaurant's been closed for quite a few weeks now, and I mean our veggie supply that we're using currently, I mean they had a horrendous amount of vegetable produce that was already sitting in cool stores with no demand. So you feel for those ones that have had to carry and potentially lose a lot of stock. So there's some huge costs out there, but they've been quite innovative, I guess, around how they can move that product. They've been delivering to our home here during the lockdown period. So it's one thing that we're still able to support them with, and obviously, we're all human, we've got to eat, so
Yes.
things like that help, and they help going forward as well, because you, like I say, you're building those relationships with your suppliers. And
yeah, that's the first thing. What anything else you've been working on?
Yes, so I guess things like events or themed type dining experiences that you can promote will potentially open the doors to other business as well. Obviously, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, someone's still got to pick up the phone and make that call to make a reservation. But I guess it's been creative around once again working with suppliers, but it could be a wine supplier and doing like a themed wine evening and things like that. So probably more likely to do more of those events. They're things that we do currently anyway, but not really often. But
yes,
things like that potentially, because there's an element of advertising around that, not just from you, but from the supplier as well. And so you can link different companies together without sort of standing on anyone's toes, and working together as a group rather than just individually sort of soldiering on, I guess.
So collaboration and creating reasons for people to come would sort of summarize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's perfect. So and then I guess the other thing too is, we'll know more about level 2 on Monday, and we've got a lot of information that we've been working through the last few days, particularly with hospitality and the rules around level 2 and social distancing, the 3 S's and stuff like that. So, we've sat down over the last few days, and we feel that we personally are in a good space with that, because a lot of those things we actually, it's part of our core business anyway. So
right.
Part of our dining environment is space. So we're not cramming. We don't aim to cram people in. We're trying to provide people with a luxury experience with room and time. So the single server thing works perfectly for us as well. Ultimately, that's what we're trying to achieve anyway. So you get some continuity with that server and build some rapport with that person whilst they're at the table, and it's part of our dining package. So
do I take it then that you are relatively comfortable you'll still be able to serve the same number of people, or have you had to take a bit of a hit on capacity?
In the dining room, we do conform with the spacing regulations. However, in saying that, we're not about volume. We never have been about volume. We're more about the experience. So we will look at that on a day-to-day basis based on bookings and the number of people on tables and things like that.
I guess we've got to work through a reaction by customers and their confidence when they do come back in, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, the staff's safety and the customer safety has got to be first and foremost. We're all got to sort of do our bit to make sure that everyone's in a good environment and safe. So
yeah. No, very good. Thank you for that. I think there's some really solid insights there. I absolutely agree that partnership process, we do have to help each other, and maybe we have to try a bit harder to help each other more than what we did beforehand. Sometimes we felt that, well, I think as a generalization, people didn't appreciate that we're all codependent. And I think that's a really good piece of wisdom, Darren. Thank you. And I also think your comment about staff and customer well-being is paramount to having a business tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Without a customer that lives and comes back, and without someone to turn up and serve them or cook for them, we haven't got anything. So I think they're perfect insights. What assets have you got that maybe you've thought you could dust off or do more with in the future? And the kind of things I'm talking about there is expertise. If we have to knuckle down and we have to manage with less, I guess, even though the tourist industry isn't your market, I'm sure that as the market shrinks, so too some of those tourist operators are all struggling to attract someone else's business. So I guess, and indirectly, everyone's going to be affected. What kind of assets do you think you might be able to get more out of? You talked about one of those being supplier collaboration. And I think that's exactly the kind of thing. But clients, equipment, expertise within your staff base, maybe even space and extra capacity days of the week, different operating hours. Is there anything that you've thought of in that space that you think you might be able to get more out of?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that we look at. I mean, you can take that from, I mean, I guess one of the big things for us as a business is we're very dependent on our staff, and at the end of the day, you're only as good as your weakest link type scenario. And obviously with the hospitality environment, there is a very definite structure in kitchens and dining rooms around, leaders and the ones that will potentially learn and follow. But like I say, I mean, staff's really important, and retaining staff is going to be one of the big key factors for all hospitality venues. I mean, if you've got someone good, that is a crucial part of your business, then it's a little bit scary, I guess, around, are we going to make enough money to keep these people employed? And I guess if you're asking yourself those questions, then you really need to potentially sit down and have conversations with those people and maybe get a little more from them in terms of their own experience or offerings, if you like. So like I say, I'm extremely lucky. I've got a sous chef that's been with me for 7 years. He started with me straight out of Polytech. He's come through our system started at Harbour 71 years ago with us for a summer season, and then worked for me in a couple of different businesses for other people as well. And now he's been with me at Chillingworth Road for 4 years now, and he's a really crucial part of our team. He's a Malaysian chef from origin, but he's very strong with his European cooking and techniques now. So he has a really good range of flavour combinations and ingredients and stuff like that we have opportunities to tap into. And it may not be potentially our core business as such in terms of, a European type offering, but when I talked about earlier some of the things we've been thinking about, and some of those things being themed events, then there's opportunity perhaps to get him to run a different offering.
Yeah. Look, that's great. That's great insight. Great insight.
Yeah. So it's just about, leaning on the resources that you have and understanding them, having those conversations with key things, and then going on with the question, I guess, other things that are crucial. I mean, we've got equipment that we've looked at. I mean, this is a Burns and Farrell hosted event that we're talking about now, but we run a Rationale oven, and now that piece of equipment, it's like having a chef in the kitchen. So it's so intuitive. There's lots of opportunities to do things with that piece of equipment, and that's just one piece of equipment in our kitchen.
Yeah.
And it's really important to understand that equipment and how to get the best from it.
Look, I think you hit on something really important there. I think, in fact, it'd be great to hear what else you thought, or what you've been cooking in your Rationale of late that you think is sort of new and a bit different, or how you've been using it different. I think what we do see everywhere, and it's part of our human nature, I suppose, we don't necessarily maximize the use of something for a long time. And I use the iPhone, for example, for many years. I used it purely as a phone, and then slowly sort of used a bit of text, and then did more email connection on it, and then maybe more latterly photograph and social media. So it's amazing how for a long time that sat underutilized, and I think equipment's the same. So you're talking about the Rationale oven. What benefits have you been able to squeeze out of your Rationale?
Yeah, so I guess initially we used the Rationale as a standard oven, and obviously there's some really good opportunities for cooking with the Rationale. But I guess the key thing really for us that we've learned over the last few years with it is, like I said earlier, it's like having another chef in the kitchen that I can program it and bake something for a period. It can change some of the cooking settings as it goes, because you can program those things into it. So
right.
In some ways it's actually as good, if not better, than some chefs, because it does exactly what you tell it to do. So
So I know exactly what you mean. Yeah.
So the ability with the oven. But in saying that, also now's a really key time for me also to have conversations with the guys at Burns and Ferrell and also upskill my knowledge with the oven as well, because we've used the oven with settings and programs that have worked really well for us, but some of those cooking techniques and opportunities around food will change with the current situation, COVID-19. So you might see a shift from really expensive cuts to lesser expensive cuts and potentially trying to do more with them and maximize that time and better value around those things to get, you can get some great results from secondary cuts with time and temperature. So the rationale is a perfect tool for that. So yeah.
Oh no, that's a couple of great insights there. Absolutely. And thank you. I think there's nothing better than hearing it. Like we go to a trade show or something and we hear salesmen tell us these things, but it's totally different when someone's actually got to carve a out of the stuff, and to hear that it's what you're doing is really useful.
Yeah, I mean, the use of something like a rationale is not, I mean, there's not just the cooking function on it, there's a serving function on it as well. And if you think about kitchens and potentially pressures on wage bill and stuff like that, that will come from what's happening currently, the ability to cook, hold and serve, I mean, that potentially is, that can potentially drop someone off your line with one or two items just coming from the oven from a cook hold perspective as well. So
totally.
You can be creative around that and really looking at conserving costs, because I think that's the one thing you can control. So
yes, well, I think carry on.
Without compromising your quality or your product. So it's really, really crucial that we go, we need to save cost. Well, you can't strip all the costs out if it comes at a compromise to your end product. So
well, and batching, you talked about labor savings there, and or being mindful of labor waste or time waste. Batching and the programmed double or triple cooking applications, i.e. steam and baking, and the combinations of those things together are significant when you look at daily waste. So if you manage to save half an hour a day over the course of the life of your restaurant, can mount up to be a lot of money, in fact.
Absolutely, yeah.
Would you agree, Darren, it's important to maintain a sense of humour through these tough times? And I suppose if you do, as a part of your customers needing to come out and enjoy something fun or uplifting, how and what are you planning or thinking about in terms of trying to maintain that? I think really what I'm talking about there is the whole team, not only what you're offering, but your whole team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is important to keep a sense of humour to a certain degree. Obviously, you don't want to take anything away from the seriousness of what we're dealing with. But, when you think about people going out, trying to get back to as close as normal life, sometimes it can be a little bit too serious. So I guess that it's a bit of a fine balance. So everyone's sense of humour is different. But one of the things that we've talked about with ours is there's a few things that we do know. So one of the things is social distancing. So there's a few opportunities around social distancing that we can get some lightheartedness, I guess, around. Like we've thought about things like writing things on the floor with your, say, 2 metre gap, and say, let's just say for argument's sake, this is Invercargill, and this is Ashburton, and this is Canterbury, and then people will stand on those spots. So when their orders are coming up and say, okay, Ashburton, 2 coffees, blah, 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 whatever that is.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, and you can do some things like that can be themed, just to try and, ease people's minds a little bit. Because when you're standing around waiting, not that people will be standing in a restaurant, because that's obviously not allowed, but when people
in a cafe,
if people are sitting in a cafe, it might be a table that's written up or something on that. So there's things to try and take people's minds off what's happening and get back to normal as best we can.
Yeah. I was talking to someone the other day about this exact same question, and in fact the question came up as a consequence of that, and she said the importance of maintaining their staff's positive mindset was critical, so that overflowed into the mindset of their customers. And I thought that was quite insightful. We often get help ourselves, or there's things maybe we're working through, and we forget that our staff are also working through issues and their world that they bring to work. And if we can keep them upbeat and positive, we deliver a better customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, staff is one of your key assets, and you're right. Different staff do have different things happening at home and personal lives and things like that. So it's really important for us as a business and as business owners to be positive and assist when necessary, and try and get that sort of, that good vibe, if you like.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's it's the old saying: there's leaders and followers, and at a time like this, I think it's, as a business owner, you've got to lead, and the staff will follow. If I turn up all mopey and down in the dumps, and there's some very real, potentially nasty situations that could come of what's happening. But if you don't start off on a positive foot, then right, it's a downward spiral. So
yeah, God knows where we'll end up. Yeah, look, I think that's absolutely right and really useful. It brings me on to quite a bit of research and thinking about this with the clients that I am working with around what the 3 important areas to focus on are. And I guess my answer to that always is connection with the customer, daily management of your key numbers, and growing your sales. Let's focus on making that sale and that transaction, because every dollar you miss, and that someone genuinely wants an article and hadn't necessarily and maybe thought that they were going to buy it from the supermarket or somewhere else, that you can help them out with is another sale through the till, and another chance at cementing your successful bounce back to pre-COVID business levels. And I think, there might be others, but have you got any thoughts on any of those, or any initiatives that you got planned around customer connection, managing your dashboard and growing your sales?
Yeah, I mean, customer connection is always a really big thing. Engaging with the customers has always been important in a hospitality environment. One of the things that we've done as a business is I've actually done a couple of little online cooking demos that I've put on my own personal page, like for the likes of Facebook and stuff like that, and
yes,
shared on our Chillingworth Road Facebook page and Instagram and stuff like that, and just to try and keep our customers connected, I guess, to see that we're still doing things to engage them and to reinforce our brand, I guess.
Yes.
So
well, and inspire them to get juiced up about coming and having a meal again.
Yeah, that's right. And the thing with the thing that we do know about what we do is people have to eat, and I think if you can engage your customer on a personal level as well at times like this is really important. So we've had some really great feedback on those videos. I mean, some of them are just really, really basic as well, and it's things that we've had here during the lockdown for dinner. And I think it's important that your customer also understand that we're the same as every other household. I've got 3 hungry boys that love food, and it's not necessarily about fancy food as such. It's about good quality ingredients, but just sometimes just doing the simple things, and just eating well and being healthy and keeping a healthy mind and things like that. So that's been fun, and like I say, we've had some great feedback on those, and there's only been a few so far, but it's definitely something that we'll probably continue to do. So one of the other things that's important as a business going forward is managing that customer experience from the time that they get to the door to the time they leave, and obviously there's a few perimeters around that now with people have to sign in and stuff like that. So a really good initiative that we've picked up on is an electronics sign-in system that will ease that initial part, so you can sign in the car or on an iPhone or something on the way in, rather than having to.
What do you use? Do you know what that is?
It's called Guest HQ.
Guest HQ, yeah.
Yeah, it's through our till system that we use at work. Just a simple thing like that for when people enter can just make that transition a little bit smoother. You know what it's like. You go to let's just say, for argument's sake, you go to a mall and you want to get a photograph printed or something like that. Well, the ease of walking into that shop, talking to a person in the store and getting that job done currently is actually quite difficult. So the likeliness of you actually doing that is a lot less. at the moment. So, you've got to feel for those situations, but you have to understand those. We'll take an understanding of that situation and go, okay, how can we make that transition easier? Yeah. So,
remove
that's
some of the pain.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things that we've done. And that's from entrance. And then we're looking at all of those systems as we go through, making sure we comply with what's needed under level 2 and right through to guest exit. So one of the things that we're looking at the moment is, because we do a 5, 7 and 9 course dining experience, there's under level 2, there's a 2-hour time slot where customers have to come and be gone. So we're going to have to look at those 9-course dining experiences and tailor them so we can fit the format. So
yes,
without rushing people. So we're looking at our food experience and making sure that we're not rushing people and things like that, because the last thing you want to do, like I said earlier, is compromise your offering. So.
Yeah. Oh, look, and I think what you hit on there at the end is that need to continually adapt and watch, and I think that in most cases sits with that dashboard of KPIs, and it isn't necessarily just your food cost and your labour cost or your gross sales, but it is about some of those other things, and obviously your length of time dining and adjusting your offer to meet that need is the way you're using that. Is there anything you're doing to grow your sales, Darren, or you're thinking you're going to need to do or change?
I guess that's a little bit unknown. We're forecasting sales at a time like this is a very difficult thing. It's something that we're obviously real mindful of, and as a business owner, it's definitely something that you want to do. I guess being out in the marketplace in terms of advertising or social media and being visible was really important at the moment, because at the end of the day, like I say, someone still has to pick up the phone and make a reservation or walk through the door or let you know they're coming in whatever capacity. So we've got an online booking system that you can go onto our Chillingworth Road website and book online. There's lots of opportunities there because we obviously do a tailored dining experience based on things like allergies and stuff like that. So you can take a lot of that, the questions and the possibilities, and we can understand those early based on booking online and filling a few details out online. And that can actually ease the dining experience, because if you've got, someone standing at the table working through all those things, and we're down to, we've got one server per table for, this part. So there is opportunities to make sure that transition is smooth, and that, I guess, in turn, can potentially make sure that you're getting your market share or a fair crack at it anyway.
Yeah. Well, look, I really appreciate the time you've spent today. I've probably got one little last question, or it's not little. You might, really, given the experience that you've had in the industry and over the time, and you've probably gone through, being from Christchurch, you've probably gone through a couple of double hits there, the GFC, and then latterly after that, the earthquake disruption, and that must have been just unprecedented at the time. But here we are back there again. You're obviously a hardened crisis manager. Have you got any advice for some of our more recent entrants to the hospitality industry facing these current challenges for the first time? Maybe something that might help them with emotional management from an emotional perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on it. I'm one of many Cantabrians that's had to deal with, their share of troubles, I guess. So, but, I guess at the end of the day, like you've got to, as a hospitality owner or worker as such, I mean, there's a few things that are important to me as a restaurateur, and there's a few things that are important to me as a chef. And as a restaurateur, staff are really important. They're a key asset to any business. As a chef, what's important to me is to be there, to be seen, and to lead. You've got to lead your team. Like, at the end of the day, if you don't lead, people won't follow. So at a time like this, when it's tough and there's a lot of ifs and buts around what's going to happen, there's talk of 30% of hospitality businesses closing, and I mean, you don't want to be one of those.
Yep.
You don't want to be that statistic. So, you've got to get in there and you've got to roll your sleeves up and you've got to be prepared to do some hard work. So, yeah, that's important. But always respect and hold high your product. You've got to believe in your product, whether that's staff, whether that's food, whether that's service. So, trust in that and stick to it. And don't try not to sway too far from that, because at the end of the day, there will be some subtle changes to it to be smart around it. You've got to be smart around your costs and what's coming through the door. But based on potentially limited customers for some people. I mean, if you owned a buffet restaurant right now, then it'd be pretty worrying times. So how can you adapt that business and move forward and not, bleed money? So
yeah. Hey, look, I think you've been very generous with some fantastic insights, Darren, and really appreciate you taking the time out to share your experience. I know that you must be excited about getting back to where you're able to open in level 2 and really apply some of your thoughts back to how to adapt the business or how to keep the business moving forward, and I guess re-engagement with the customer process, which all of us older OSPO people, really it's what drives us on, is that customer engagement and that sense of being able to bring that pleasure. Look, I really appreciate your time. All the best for the weeks and months ahead. I hope to hear about some of the good stuff you're doing in the months ahead.
Oh, no problem. Thanks so much for hosting me today and for the invite to come on. So it's my pleasure to be involved.
Hey, great, Darren. Keep up the good work. Okay.
Thanks so much.